Hello there wrestling fans, Adam from What Culture here, and I've got a little something that might be of interest to all you NXT fans out there. Now, WWE's earnings report came out a few weeks back and it made for some very sobering reading material, particularly regarding NXT. The yellow brand accrued $5.6 million in ticket sales, very good. It then also incurred $25 million in expenses, not so good. And the problem here, of course, is you've got to ask yourself the question, with all the talent that comes through the doors in NXT, and all of the subsequent guys who end up going onto the main roster and becoming main event stars, the big question here is that a loss worth taking? And wouldn't you know it, that brings us nicely to what I'd like to talk to you about today, and that is NXT a waste of money? Now, I think it's fair to say that nobody particularly was under the illusion that NXT was a self-sufficient enterprise. Simply put, you cannot pay your guys more than what Ring of Honor pay their guys, do matches in small arenas, sometimes smaller than that of Ring of Honor, and expect it to outdraw them financially. It's just not going to happen. That said, I think the big issue here is the extent that NXT seems to be hemorrhaging money from Vince McMahon's pocket. NXT's business plan is very straightforward. They snap up the guys from the independent scene, bring them over to NXT, learn them the ways of WWE and their television techniques, etc. They spend time and, more importantly, production techniques producing these guys as the stars that they are and getting the fan base behind them. They then use that star power to improve the brand on TV and improve the brand on the takeover pay-per-views, and more importantly, use it to sell tickets for the live shows that they do. Meanwhile, alongside this, you've then got the guys who go through the Performance Center, who, in theory, are supposed to use NXT as a stomping ground to learn their craft, to develop as performers, and eventually become a main roster star for WWE. And this is where it gets a bit complicated, because they have a tendency to shine the spotlight on the guys coming from the independent scene, which is great for pay-per-views and great for us as viewers, but as guys who are in developmental trying to break through, it makes opportunities extremely hard to come by. Take the likes of Tino Sabatelli and Riddick Moss, for example. They are two guys who are transitioning from the world of football. They've both been trained by world-class coaches at the Performance Center, but arguably neither of them is closer to quote-unquote making it than they were in 2014. And arguably these are two of the more successful guys in developmental. Now, there's no questioning the amount of facilities and quality of training available to the guys, but unfortunately, with quality of training and with facilities of that standard, there's a very big cost, and in this case, it's an absolute fortune. While I'm sure NXT was never designed as a money-making vehicle, it still needs to get these guys through and produce stars of tomorrow if it's going to justify those losses. And the question here is whether or not they're doing that. Yes, it's great having these excellent performers, but they need to get onto the main roster, and more importantly, they need to bloom if it's going to be worth it. While I'm sure NXT was never designed as a money-making vehicle, the greater purpose still needs to be achieved in order for this to make sense. After such a heavy investment, the fruits of their labour need to bloom and come onto the main roster and produce stars of tomorrow, which is exactly what they're looking for. So, how do we quantify that then? Well, it's not exactly easy to nail down. On the one hand, I can see why people might think that it isn't. People will say that the genuine homegrown success stories pale in significance to the endless list of also-rans. People will say that the guys who don't need the PC, the indie guys, really don't need it, and the guys who do need it really don't benefit from it. And people will also say that the guys who were so successful in NXT, Bobby Roode, Nakamura, have perhaps been a bit stunted since hitting the main roster and not delivered the kind of return that the investment like this demands. Well, to those people, I say you may need to look a little bit closer. For starters, every wrestler can't be at the top of the card, nor do they need to be, really. At the end of the day, you've got to have a roster full of guys who are in all different positions, and everyone needs to play their role. And the key part here is that of the main roster, 53 of the 105 wrestlers on the main roster, combining Raw and SmackDown together, all came through NXT. 30 of these were direct products of the Performance Center, with the rest of the guys having had an independent circuit history before their time in Florida. Without these wrestlers, no matter where they are on the card, top, middle or bottom, the show simply cannot happen. It's as simple as that. Secondly, not everybody can be champion, and more importantly, not everybody should be rushed to the pinnacle so quickly. Look at Bayley, look at American Alpha, two guys who had a hurried push, and it's been counterproductive booking for both of them. Now, impatience is a byproduct of our generation, granted, but the thing to remember here is that one, these guys and gals have got to go up there and earn their spot on the roster, and they've also got to connect with the audience, and two, the guys who are already there aren't just going to lie down and accept that their position has been taken by a new guy. Having said that, if being at the top of the card and winning major titles is proof that NXT is worth the investment, then let's talk about the Universal Championship, the Women's Championships, and pay-per-view main events. In 2017, every single pay-per-view main event, from Royal Rumble all the way through to Clash of Champions, featured a product of the Performance Center. Out of the 4 wrestlers who've had the privilege of being crowned Universal Champion, 2 of those men, Finn Balor and Kevin Owens, both came through the Performance Center. And for both SmackDown and Raw Women's Championships, every woman who's held those titles, with the exception of Natalya and Naomi, were a product of the Performance Center. If that's not enough, and perhaps it's more appropriate to talk about money given the significant losses that were mentioned earlier, then let's talk merchandise. 3 of the top 5 merch sellers in 2017, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins and The New Day, were all products again of the Performance Center. Alright, Kofi Kingston wasn't, but as your boy Meatloaf says, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. More specifically, in terms of individual merch, we saw Rusev as the #1 seller on WWE.com at the tail end of last year, with the sales of his Rusev Day merchandise through the roof. The Shield, Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, Elias and Braun Strowman, again all products of the Performance Center, were also in the top 15 merch sellers at that time. How far that goes to recouping the losses of the yellow brand, as well as how much you could specifically put on each individual for their drawing power at pay-per-views, is very hard to put your finger on. The one thing I would say, however, is that if it's as simple as building new stars and looking to the future, whether it's Roman Reigns, the company man, whether it's the fans' favourite Braun Strowman, or whether it's the Empress of Tomorrow, Asuka, the one thing they all have in common is that all roads lead back to NXT and the Performance Center. Whether it's operating at a loss or not, that sort of experience, nurture and development is absolutely priceless. Equipping these wrestlers for the rigours of main roster life, connecting them with the fans, and also getting them used to the WWE schedule is absolutely invaluable. The big question though is how long Vince McMahon is going to let this go on until it becomes problematic for the company. NXT is Triple H's baby, so the investment is protected to some extent, but make no mistake about it, this latest financial report will be a cause for concern, even for a company as minted as WWE. Yes, it's not a perfect system, and yes, the brand split now demands that the talent be nurtured and developed much quicker, almost at a yearly basis, and yes, the likes of Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Finn Balor, Nakamura could arguably all have been bigger and better in NXT. But like all of these things, it's a marathon and not a sprint. Undoubtedly, WWE will take measures to try and stop the bleeding a little bit if it becomes too problematic, and more importantly, when it comes to the stars, surely they need to be given time. The Roman Empire wasn't built in a day. The ballad of Braun Strowman was not always a popular one, but I think we can all agree, begrudgingly or not, they've very much been worth the wait. Triple H once said that WWE was the book that never ends. Whether NXT continues to be backed by the checkbook that never ends, however, we'll have to wait and see. And that is our video on NXT. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And if you want more NXT content like this, then head over to whatculture.com right now. My name is Adam Nicholas, and as always, have a fucking great day.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe below, and if you're looking for more content like this, then try a few things that are floating about around my ears. It might be fun. I can't promise it though, but it might be.